Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the show. Listen, I'm glad to have you guys here. Now, today is Tuesday, June 11th, 2019. And you know what? We got a lot to talk about. This is going to be a good show. Let's get the chart started right here, and let's take a look at silver price today. What we're seeing is $14.68. It's up a penny on the day. Let's take a look at gold. Gold is $1,323, and it's moving upwards right now. I'll tell you, they've been staying in this range for quite a while, gold and silver. Gold was down in the 1200s, but now it's moved back into the 1300s. 1323. Let's take a look at Bitcoin, what it's been doing. You know, Bitcoin is kind of stalled too right now. It's kind of stalled and going sideways for a while. I guess it's just taking a breather, you know. Before its next leg up in a month or two from now, it's probably going to start back up again. But right now, it's taking a little breather. 77.82. Let's take a look at cryptocurrency market capitalizations, and we're looking at, well, let me refresh the page today. 250 billion it was. 249,999. You can't get any closer to 250 billion than that. Litecoin is staying strong. Litecoin is the only coin that's moving against the grain right now. $127.51. I always knew Litecoin is undervalued, you know. It's still considerably undervalued as far as I'm concerned, you know, in its comparison to Bitcoin. Let's take a look at the stock market today, and I'm going to refresh the page, but it looks like we're up today. 167 points up. Now listen, guys, get yourselves ready. Get yourselves ready. I think this stock market's going to tank. There's a number of factors and a number of reasons why I think this stock market's going to tank pretty soon. And some of it has to do with the Fed. They've been pricing, this is why it's up today. They are pricing in not just one federal rate hike cut, but multiple federal rate hike cuts. And it's going against all sense. Common sense would tell you that we're going into a recession right now. But all they can see is this candy in front of their eyes. These the Fed lowering the interest rate and doing these rate cuts. That's all they can see in front of their eyes right now, is that candy. And when they don't get their candy, they're apt to throw a temper tantrum. You know, and I think that's coming. We're going to talk about that a little bit more in greater detail in a minute or two. Let's move on and take a look at oil today. Oil is going along sideways right now, but it's up on the day. It's up a half a penny, 41% of. It's up 0.77%, almost 1%. It's up $53.67 on oil. Pressures are increasing over in the Middle East. You know, pressures are intensifying. Things are intensifying between. Iran is throwing threats around. You know, what else can I say? U.S. Treasuries today. Now, we're looking at the yield curve inversion. Whenever the yields rise on this long end, it's moving a little bit away from the yield curve inversion. But it's been doing this all along. It'll take one step forward and two steps back. So we're looking at the bond yields are all messed up right now. Completely messed up. Look at these yields, especially in the middle of the curve. 1.9 on the U.S. 3-year, where we're seeing on the 1 month 2.28. So we still have the yield curve inversion. Will it move all the way up to the U.S. 30-year? We're going to have to wait and see. My best guess is that it's not going to catch the 30-year. It's only going to go out as far as the 10-year. I think this thing's like a coiled spring right now. I don't think this is going to last very much longer. The way these bonds are looking right now, I think we're heading for some really big trouble. Now, I'll talk about Deutsche Bank just for a second before we move on. Deutsche Bank is up a little bit today. It's up back above €6. It was down below €6. I made the mark for Deutsche Bank failing at €6. But here's the situation we got going on. Picture you're a landowner. Picture you got a house and you've got a nice tool shed, you know? Well, normally, if something were to happen and your tool shed lit on fire, it would be a huge emergency and everything. You call the fire department in and everything else, you know, to take care of the tool shed's on fire. Oh no, my tool shed's on fire, you know? But if the house was on fire, you know, that would draw your attention away because that's a bigger emergency than the tool shed, you know? Say your house is on fire. Well, say your house got on fire and the tool shed lit on fire at the same time. You might not pay too much attention to the tool shed because your house is on fire. This is the situation we got with Deutsche Bank. Deutsche Bank's like the tool shed. It's ready to burn down. The bank's ready to burn down. But the whole scene on the rest of the world's economy with this trade war going on and everything, the whole world's getting ready to burn down. Economically speaking, of course. I'm using it as a metaphor. We might not pay so much attention to Deutsche Bank if the whole world is collapsing at the same time. Deutsche Bank goes down at the same time. It's only going to add a little bit more fuel to a huge fire, you know. And so Deutsche Bank might go more unnoticed. Deutsche Bank is staying alive. They're in this business right now. I'll call it doggy paddling. They're doggy paddling, just keeping their nose barely above the water. They're just about ready to sink. The water's up to here, right up to the top of their nose, you know, and they're doggy paddling. That's what they're doing. Let's take a look now at U.S. dollar index. 96.73 on the U.S. dollar index. And we're seeing the U.S. dollar index going along basically sideways right now. But, you know, it was up to 98. It's dropped back a little bit. So we've lost a little bit, and today it's moved down just a little bit. It's moving down almost nothing, but tiny little bit. We are in negative numbers with it. Let's take a look now at... now I'm going to go back to talking about the stock market. You know what? This is an article from Zero Hedge. Stocks won't stay bid on bad news just because the Fed cuts 25 basis points. You know what? The stock market right now has moved up recently. It's not based just on one 25 basis point Fed rate cut. That's not what it's based on. They're basing it on multiple Fed cuts of 25 basis points. Multiple ones. And that's what they're basing this rally on. I'm going to tell you what. I would not be a bit surprised if the Federal Reserve quite literally stayed pat and didn't do anything on this next meeting. If they didn't even cut 25 basis points. If they just try to, basically, the Fed just tries to hide their head in the sand on this next meeting and tries to slide on through doing nothing. Because there's pressures out there that are pushing the Fed toward a rate hike instead of a rate cut. There's pressures out there, you know. And the Fed would really, what they'd like to do right now is hike rates. Move up 25 basis points. And so there's a considerable pressure on the Fed to move up 25 basis points. There's a likelihood that they just might hold pat. Because what have they told us? Actually, the Fed's come out and told us. They have told us that they're going to be patient. Staying pat, not moving on this, is being patient. And they haven't told us that they're going to cut rates. Explicitly said they're going to cut rates in this next meeting. They haven't said that they're going to cut rates in this next meeting. They have not given us any guarantee that they're going to even cut rates once on this next meeting. No guarantees. They just said that, well, maybe we will. They've just basically promised that perhaps we will. They've used language like that. This is the way the Fed works. They lead you on to thinking that they're going to do something when they don't give you any guarantee what they're going to do. They haven't come right out and said, we're going to cut rates on this next meeting. No. They've come out and they've said, well, maybe it might be it might be necessary, and they use words like that. They kind of lead you into thinking that they're going to, but they don't say that they are going to, and they leave everybody out hanging there thinking that they're going to do one thing when they might do something completely different. But I'm thinking myself that the Fed is probably going to stay pat, not going to do anything. Well, that's going to be a huge mistake if they do, because the stocks have they've not only priced in one cut, but they've priced in multiple cuts right now. Let's take a look now at Morgan Stanley. Says even if the Fed cuts rates this summer, it could be too late to stop a recession. And I totally agree with this. I agree with this so much. Even if the Fed cuts rates this summer, it could be too late to stop her. And this is true. You know, we're in deep right now. We're in deep doo-doo. This trade war's heating up. I don't think they expected it to go this way. I'm going to tell you what. The Asian people have they won't be pushed around. You know, the people, Japanese people, they won't be pushed around. Chinese people, they won't be pushed around. They will not cave to being bullied or anything like that. They'll get stuck there. Well, people all around the earth are the same way. Nobody likes to be pushed around and told what to do. You know? And they don't like to be bullied. People don't like to be bullied worldwide. And I call it they get their back up. You know, in other words, they get stubborn and they won't yield. It's basically like yielding. It's the same thing as the freeway, you know. You're merging onto the freeway, you know. And maybe the guy you're merging into the lane won't yield to you. You know, and then you decide you're not going to yield to him, and the two cars are merging together, you know. There used to be a game they used to play back in the old days where it was called chicken. Two men would get in a car, or women, well, you know, but mostly it was men that did this because testosterone got them going, you know. All this testosterone. And then one would be behind the wheel one car, one would be behind the wheel of the other car, and the winner would get to own the other guy's car. You know? And basically they'd head first at each other on a freeway. Of course, this game's totally illegal. It was a totally illegal game that they used to play. And they'd head first at each other on the freeway, faster and faster and faster. And the first guy that swerved off, well, he was the loser. You know, and he'd have to give his car to the other guy. Called chicken, game of chicken. Of course, both of them, if neither one of them were to swerve off, they would hit head on at like 80 miles an hour, and boom, bang, bing, you know? Well, this is like this trade war is like a game of chicken. And I don't see either side yielding back at this point. And so what we're looking at is a crash. A financial crash. Now, we were heading toward this financial crash anyway. You know? We were heading toward a recession anyway. But this is going to exacerbate it and speed it up immensely. And it's going to exacerbate the depth and breadth and scope of this financial disaster. Honest to goodness, the economy's in a mess. Now let's take a look at earthquakes. Not much to talk about today with earthquakes. Earthquakes, very few earthquakes. Little tiny shakes is all. A few little tiny shakes. Let's talk about the disease that's going out in the Congo. If you guys heard of this, listen. There's sites on the internet right now. They're fear, total fear. This is a very frightening disease, and they're capitalizing on that fear. And what they're doing is they're basically they're fear porn sites on the internet and stuff right now about this subject. Yes, it might take the World Health Organization a couple years to get this under control, you know, and during this period in time, these sites that propagate on fear and stuff are going to use this as a tool to try to gain people's attention so that they can make money. It's all about making money, you know. And the thing is they'll get people so frightened, people will be frightened to go to the supermarket to get groceries, and it's ridiculous because this disease is in the Congo. It's in the Congo. It's not at your local supermarket. You know, so if you've been at these fear porn sites and you're all terrified and you're staying at home because you're scared to death, you know, about this disease, you needn't be. Now, it's going to take the World Health Organization a while to get control over this thing, you know, because it's in a war-torn area. They're having trouble because the people in that country are shooting at one another and stuff, you know, and it's war-torn. That's why it's such a big problem they're having there in the Congo. Anyway, I got enough said about that. Listen, thank you guys for listening. We're in for one heck of a ride here. It might be such a bad ride, such a bad economic situation that's coming, that Deutsche Bank going down is just like you don't pay too much attention to your tool shed burning down if your house is on fire. This is the thing, you know what I mean? Listen, thank you guys for listening. Like and subscribe, and we'll catch you guys in the next show. Bye-bye.